Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
We are on episode tres.
3, yes.
Yes, en español. Tres.
Si quieres, lo podemos hacer en español.
Oh, I forget it. I'm done.
Okay. You started it.
Yeah, I know. I know just enough Spanish to make me dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I believe that.
We're not going to say any Spanish swear words. So welcome to Creating Connections podcast number 3. And I'm Mitch Taylor, Gittimer Certified Advisor.
I'm Vicki Musney, Certified Personality Trainer.
Awesome. So glad that we can partner together on this podcast and share some insights and thoughts into the events industry.
It's fun. I like it, yeah. It makes sense, and it's fun, even though I'm laughing because we have so many time zone challenges. But
yeah, right now it's afternoon where I'm at, and it's morning.
I'm getting ready to leave for a luncheon.
I've already had lunch. It's kind of the way it is.
Well, I won't get to eat. I'm presenting at the luncheon, so.
So you got to go on stage here in just a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
So
Professional saleswoman of Nevada.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I should get out there and see that at some point. We've had talks to go to Nevada.
Yes.
Yes.
But not for PSN.
No, not for PSN.
No.
I'd rather go for ESPN, but.
Professional saleswomen of Nevada.
PSWN. Right?
All right.
Whatever. Okay, so today we're talking on Sales for Event Pros. That is a group on Facebook that I started, back in January, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of was launched because Randy Bartlett said that he wanted to keep his 1% solution group focused on performance.
Yep.
And on the details of the 1% solution. So I said, well, who better, I guess, to start a sales group for DJs and for event pros than myself. And I made Vicki a moderator of that group as well. Like, we don't really need any moderating anyway, but in case...
No, for now it's been mostly a self-moderating group.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a great group so far, and we're at, 180 members or something like that right now. But a question was asked, and if you're interested in joining the group, just go ahead and search, Sales for Event Pros in the Facebook search bar. Send a request to join. Put in your request if you want to, that you heard about us from the Creating Connections podcast, and we'll make sure you get in.
And then we'll let you in.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, we kind of go on our own little hacking spree and check out you and stalk you on Facebook and just see who you are first, and that's truly what happens. But anyway,
yes.
one of our colleagues, Matthew Kays, posted. One of my colleagues today said that the world outside of our region does not exist when it comes to pricing for DJ services. How does one find out what the high and low and medium price for a DJ is in an area without being a fake secret shopper? And how much would you agree or disagree with the statement that pricing is only relevant to the region that you're in? I say we handle the first question first, right?
That's a loaded topic.
It is, and way more than we have time for today because you have to run off to your meeting. But the world outside our region does not exist when it comes to pricing for DJ services. Thoughts?
It's such a big topic, and I think that is so connected to his next thought of how do you know the high, medium, and low. And then I know my perspective is tainted because I've been following that thread, and I've seen that one of the comments was, "Who cares? Why does it matter?" And while I think there is some validity in that there are certain areas that are known for having a higher cost of living, and I've got friends that live in Hawaii, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, that there's so many more factors in how, as a business owner, you price yourself. And part of me gets that mentality of I want to know what other people are charging, but maybe I'm just at a point now where I don't care. I think for me, at least, it's more about knowing what my services are and what my value is and what my time is worth to me, and if they're a client I want to work with or not. And if they're really just out price shopping, go have fun with that.
Yeah,
I wish you well, and I don't know. I've had some clients lately I've met with, and I'm thinking after an initial meeting, I don't think you could pay me enough to want to work with you.
absolutely. I think it's really important for us to know the operations side of things and what are our cogs. And this is only something I've been diving into recently because, well, the last couple of years, few
You're
years.
so much better than I am now.
Well, okay, we're all on
You
different.
you deal in more concrete numbers, and I'm just more about, is this worth giving up my Saturday for or not?
We're
Yeah.
all on different areas of the path, right? Like we said in our last
Yeah.
podcast, we're all in different areas of the path. But I think there comes a good debate here. The world outside of our region does not exist when it comes to pricing. In some aspects of that thought process, I would agree because you shouldn't base your prices on what anybody else charges. If you want to look for inspiration from people who are charging more than you, who you aspire to get to that level someday, but also make sure they're doing it on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge part
Not
of it.
just they booked one big event and this is my price range now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so pricing is only relevant to the region that you're in.
Hey, you have to tell your story though, Mitch, because what I said before about, oh yeah, my friends that live in, New York and San Francisco and LA and Honolulu, they can charge more because the cost of living. Then the natural tendency is to think that the reverse of that is true. That, oh, if you live in a small town in the middle of nowhere, then you can't charge top dollar.
Yeah, so I would agree with
Sorry, I
that.
didn't mean to insult your town.
No, it's all good. My town is small. It's 12,000 people. I'll get into my story in a little bit. I want to make sure I say this because this is
Okay.
two things I want to stay on this topic first before I dive into my story because I think my story also dovetails into our next topic,
Yes.
which will be a great
It's
segue.
all related.
So the next two things I want to say are two things. Back in the days of Pro DJ, when it was start.prodj.com, used to be the Mobile Beat Forum, or actually, not used to be the Mobile Beat Forum, but Mobile Beat Forum used to be that. When Ryan Berger first started start.prodj.com. There was articles on there that were written by none other than our friend Randy Bartlett, and he coined the acronym NIMBY, which means not in my backyard. And how many DJs say NIMBY? Say, oh, I could never charge that in my not in my backyard, kind of deal. So I go back to that, and I also go back to something that Jamie Bodie, our good friend Jamie, said. And he says on here, pricing based on competitors' price is a race to the bottom. You can quote me on that.
Yep.
And I would agree. When you put yourself in a commodity mindset, then your client looks at you as a commodity mindset. And as Mark Farrell talked about in a seminar, you're part of the bell curve. And if you fall anywhere between $500 increments of your competitor, you're probably in the bell curve. You're in the medium area for entertainers. And you can be very, very successful as a fellow member of Sales for Event Pros, Byron Gunter, messaged me on a thread recently. Now, Byron is very proud of the fact that he charges, $500 or $600 for an event. He's on that. If I can get my numbers right here. Here we go. Right here. He's on that part of the bell curve, on that lower end. Versus, someone like Dave Tournier, for example, is on, I can't get my master, there we go, this side of the bell curve, there we go. And you have the bell curve in the middle, right? I can't get my timing right with the mirrors here, but you get the idea of what I'm saying. So the point is that you can have a successful business regardless of what end of the bell curve you're on, okay? It doesn't matter. Personally, do I care what side of the bell curve anybody's at? No, I don't. As long as you run a successful business.
And as long as you know. I think you have to be aware
absolutely.
to some level of where you are and know why you're running your business the way you are.
Absolutely. And there are successful businesses on both sides, and I'm not going to poo-poo anybody for running one on either side of it. I think when we get in the middle is where all that competition is, and everyone's fighting for that next dollar, and you can't distinguish yourself when you're in the middle. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a huge part of it.
It's harder, for sure.
People always talk about NIMBY, right? And not in my backyard. I my story is I moved up here from Metro Detroit. There was only one gentleman who was doing anything like what I was doing in Metro Detroit, and his name was Lee Haynes. And Lee Haynes was a mentor of mine, still is in some ways. We're best friends. And I called him on the road in Metro Detroit and said, hey, my name is Mitch Taylor, and I'm moving to the UP of Michigan in Escanaba. I see that you're doing similar things to what I'm doing in Metro Detroit. We could be competitors or we can be friends. Which do you want to be? That's pretty ballsy.
Yep.
But that's also who Lee is as a person. So he connected with that, right? Creating connections. He connected with that, and it started a lifelong friendship for us now. And Lee was my agent for a short time, and no one ever believed, I didn't believe, my in-laws didn't believe, my wife didn't believe, that you could charge over $1,000 for DJ service in 12,000 person town in the middle of Upper Peninsula, Michigan. And we've now routinely proven that you can not only charge that amount, you can charge 3 times that amount and have a successful business. Now, there's different levels in regards to our talent. That's a completely separate conversation. We already get into that here today. But the point is that you can survive and or thrive on both ends of that bell curve, if you will. And then the other conversation we want to get into today, right? We want to get into our friend Dave Tournier.
Yeah, I think it was interesting timing, because I don't think they happened. One wasn't related to the other necessarily, but the topics related. But he wrote a brilliant blog post that got a lot of attention, and I just thought it was worth bringing it up. Do you have it in front of you?
I do have it in front of me.
Yeah, all right.
So Dave writes on his blog at djthought.com, and that's Dave Tournier from Verdun, Manitoba, Canada. And Verdun is actually an even smaller town than Escanaba, believe it or not. It's like a town of 3,000 people. And it says anyway, from $500 per wedding in 2010 to $3,500 per wedding in 2015, a short 5 years later, I am often asked, how and when did you raise your price, Dave? What motivated you to make those price increases? Were there certain signs you were watching before raising your price? How often did you raise your price? Once a year or twice a year? And Dave goes on to explain how often he raised his prices, why he raised his prices.
Why, yeah. And I was one of those that have asked him. Dave is another personal mentor and good friend of mine, and I've had that conversation with him, and I was really glad to see him put it into a blog post, because sometimes I get information, via phone and over phone calls and Facebook chats, and it's just nice to have it in one place. And I'm grateful that he was willing to be so honest. And I think sometimes people are kind of afraid to have the price question. And I appreciated the way that he did it, and the attitude behind it. And if you don't know Dave, he gets into very specific numbers. What's the tagline of how to get from 500 to 3,500 in 5 years, something like that?
6 tips for giving you your next raise is his tagline on it. And the first point he makes is, after 6 consecutive inquiries, go through your consultation process and book your services. So in other words, you went 6 for 6, right? You're batting 1,000. Consider raising your rates. I don't have a problem with that. Closing ratio is something we haven't discussed yet, actually. But if you're 6 for 6...
We can put that on next week.
Yeah, we need to. But if you're 6 for 6, yeah, you should raise your prices.
Yeah, it means there's other value there, and you're probably giving stuff away that you shouldn't.
You're more than likely you're leaving money on the table.
Yep.
His second point, and I want you to delve into it. I'm not going to give you all the meat of the blog post, but I want you to go back and read it. But just give you the bullet points here. If you want to become a millionaire, surround yourself with millionaires. And it reminds me of another quote I heard. I can't remember where I heard this from. But if you're the smartest person in the room,
you're in the wrong room.
You're in the wrong room. That is so true, don't you think?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go get a different podcast. No.
Wow.
That was awesome, wasn't it? That was a great one. I love that.
Surround yourself with the people that are running the businesses the way you want to run, that are, having the kind of success that you want to experience. It makes sense. And unfortunately, sometimes when we look around us, there are people, and I'm not talking about what you shared about your wife and your in-laws and people whose opinions you do have to take
Right.
into consideration, but there are
Sure.
other people that are just full of negativity. And while you may need to interact with them at some levels because you live in the same region or you're at an event together, seek out purposeful, intentional relationships with positive people that are of the same mindset, and minimize the negative input that you get. You have to if
Ab-
you want to grow and change.
Absolutely. Another point Dave had was take a workshop, attend a conference, raise your rates. I want to be careful on that thought process. Some people think, oh, I attended a conference. That's like workshop. No, it's different. A workshop is a workshop. And a workshop is different than a seminar.
Yeah.
They're two completely different things. And just because you attended a workshop or a seminar, to me, doesn't imply that you raise your rates. I think a better indicator is exactly what he put in point number one, which is if you go 6 for 6, dude, you're leaving money on the table, you know?
There is something to be said for that inspirational and educational high that you have
Absolutely.
when you come home from a conference, like we talked about in the last episode. And that's a time when you can try it. And I think his whole point, and maybe this is in a later one, is that you don't have to raise your rates because it's the anniversary of starting your business or because it's January 1st, that you can individually quote, and you might surprise yourself. You quote high,
That's
and but I think, and people talk about Mark's message, the getting what you're worth. And I think the other side of that coin, though, is being worth what you charge. And that's where the educational and the training and the workshops come in, is knowing that you are improving.
yes.
And that's a little bit
There's
harder to quantify.
there's more to getting what you're worth than just that, but that's another whole different podcast as well.
Yep.
But
Good thing to do this every week.
yeah, exactly. So Dave said, as you kind of pointed to as well, the time of year does not matter. Stop waiting to raise your rates next year. I've been guilty of that. Totally have been guilty of that before myself from a standpoint of waiting. And so I need to take his advice a little more to heart, I think. There were times where I was raising my rates 2 to 3 times a year. And as I've climbed that ladder up, I've noticed myself raising my rates less. That's because my closing ratio is really where I want it to be right now. I think that's important to gauge your marketplace and find out where your closing ratio is. To me, a good closing ratio is around 2/3. If you're selling at 2/3 clip, then you're probably in that sweet spot of where you want to be, at least in my opinion.
I
agree. Where you're not leaving money on the table, but yet you're getting a good lion's share as well. And that's important. Number 5, Dave said, was ask your past wedding couples what type of value they received from you in relation to what they paid for your services. And again, give credit where credit is due. I believe I got this from Peter Mary. And that was asking the question, what percent of the success of your reception would you attribute to Tailored Weddings, or whatever your company name is? And if your clients are saying you're responsible for 80% of the success of their event or more, or even less, then you're delivering.
And you're worth more than 10% of their budget.
Well, you're absolutely worth more than 10% of your budget, but at that point, when I can make that correlation, when we get to the close, right? I really hate that term, but regardless, when you get to that part of the conversation, and you can show past brides of yours have raved about you and your service, and say you're responsible for 80% of the success of the event, to only fall in around 10 to 20% of a budget, that's a great value. Talk to any investment rep and say, here, I'm going to give you 10% of my money or 20% of my money right now, and in 9 months from now, I want you to guarantee me 80% return on investment, this one time only. You'd take that deal every day of the week, twice on Sunday. Why wouldn't you?
Yep.
So and then number 6, Dave pointed out here, is turn regular competition into friendly competition. Ed, do you want to speak about that a little bit?
I was just thinking about at Mobile Beat, there was a speaker that talked about co-opetition, and that was his term that he coined for cooperation with your competition. And I liked that. It's something that's pretty rare still, I feel, in our industry, and I see it in pockets, and I see people like Dave talks about his relationship with Brian, and you talked
Yeah.
about how you have that with Lee, and or had that. I think you guys are in different places now,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, just having someone, and it ties back into that second point about surrounding yourself with like-minded people, and but kind of having that little friendly competition, oh yeah, I'm going to raise my rates this much. You think you can get that much? And it's good for each person individually. It's good for the industry, and in general, competition raises the bar.
Well, and it's
And if you're
also,
going to keep raising your prices, you have to keep raising your value and what you're providing, and you're going to help each other become better people.
and not only on your end, but on your client's end, and raising the
Yes,
outcome of their events. Because,
exactly.
if Dave's already booked up, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or back before Lee retired out of the business, if I was already booked up, for example, I could strongly recommend them to Lee
Mm-hmm.
and know that he would do a phenomenal job. And Dave could do the same for Brian, and Brian the same for Dave. And when you have that confidence in your fellow DJ being able to totally wow a client and deliver not necessarily the same performance as you would do, because we're all different, we're all unique, but at a level that you provide in regards to the planning, the production, the performance.
Not the same performance, but the same level of performance, the same quality of care and attention to detail.
That's a huge key, a huge key.
For sure.
That's where I feel that certain people in different markets, Jeremy Breck and Chris Hintz and some of the guys in South Dakota certainly come to mind from that standpoint as well. I know there's other pockets in the industry as well where people share regularly back and forth in regards to their DJs in their market versus having that, headbutting competition, that quapetition, if you will.
It's a good word.
Quapetition, I like that. I'll have to check that out.
It was Gary Shapiro.
Gary Shapiro, Ninja Innovation.
Yes.
I just got his book at Mobile Beat, and we'll be reading it here as well.
Yes, it's on I came home with a read list, so I have to finish the last one that you gave me, and then Jason Spencer also gave me a book to read. So as soon as I finish those, then I'll start my Mobile Beat reading list.
Awesome. Speaking of that, I think that's a great subject for our next podcast.
Yeah, reading material.
Books you've read and how they've influenced you.
I like it.
Let me write that down. Books.
I like it. Yeah, I'm hoping to finish a couple on the plane on the way to and from Toronto. So.
That's right. So you've got a conference in Toronto here coming up?
Yes, I leave Friday.
Awesome.
For the CDJ show in Toronto.
Awesome. So you're speaking next at the CDJ show?
Yes, I'm speaking both days. Yep.
And the dates of that are?
March 13th. No, I fly on the 13th. March 14th and 15th.
Got it. Okay. And the next place you can see me is going to be at Midwest DJs Live, and that is going to be on April 12th. I'm speaking and doing a complete revamp of my presentation, Reinventing Yourself in Today's Economy. And we'll be hopefully seeing you at Midwest DJs Live or at the CDJ show with Vicky up in Toronto.
Yep.
So if you'd like to visit more, find out more where we're at, you can go to mitchtaylor.net. Or
VickyMusney.com.
Vicky Musney. Did I get it right? Kind of, sort of.
Mostly.
Almost. It's like our famous joke at the end of every podcast, whether I pronounce your name or not correctly. Thank you for checking out the Creating Connections Podcast, Volume 3.
See you again next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.